And we're live. Good evening, Jane.
Good evening, or good afternoon, Paul.
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock in the UK.
And it is 12 noon in Canada on the West Coast.
And it's so exciting. It is the start officially of season 5.
I know, very exciting, very exciting.
Let's get the show going.
Do it.
Hi, Jane. Good to see you. Welcome.
Good to see you too.
It's good to be back.
It is. We have a very exciting guest today.
We do. We do. Can we just say, though, before we bring Maria in, you know, we've been going now for over 2 years, and I just kind of wanted to share with everybody our gratitude on the journey, really. And it's been an amazing journey. And we're now starting on season 5, and we've got some more amazing guests coming up. You probably just saw the clip there. We do also have the lovely Diana Cooper, Charlie Kelly, Peter Matthew, Donna Doyle. There's some great guests we've got coming on. But tonight, we've got another fantastic guest, haven't we?
We certainly do. We certainly do. And she came highly recommended. So we're so glad that she has agreed to come on and to share all of her knowledge.
Yeah. I'm going to let you introduce Maria.
Okay. So author and professional dowser, Maria Wheatley, has been studying dowsing, astrology, and past lives for the past 20 years. Maria is considered a leading authority in earth energies and has spent the last 10 years researching ley lines and earth energies integrated into ancient sites and how they were harnessed by our ancient ancestors to raise consciousness. She has founded the Esoteric College. She's an author, and from my understanding, she also has a movie coming out soon.
Yes, yeah, I've seen the clip coming out as well.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Without further ado, let's bring Maria in.
Yeah, I'd just like to say it's much longer than 10 years in integrating earth energies. I just like to say it's been 30 years of my life, not 10. 10 years ago, I had a book out about that. But thank you for that nonetheless. It was a lovely introduction.
Oh, thank you.
And you've done so much. And just to say you're a second generation dowser, there's so much to what you do as well. But dowsing itself is a very unique skill, and a lot of people won't even have heard of it. I've got some dowsing rods in here which I've used, but I'm very much a novice. I've not got any kind of qualification or anything, but they are really an excellent tool. Can you describe a little bit, Maria, about dowsing and what it is?
Yeah, most people describe dowsing as the art of being able to find an invisible object, be that traditionally underground water, 49 different types of earth energies, or numerous different types of ley lines. I can classify ley lines for you if you want later, but that's what a very male approach. For me, what dowsing is a reconnection to the earth and the expression that she has in earth energies. So I don't just go out and douse for ley lines in houses anymore. I did 30 years ago. But now I encourage people, if we go dowsing, let's interact with those energies. Let's look at the healing energies. Let's look at the energies that can clear your aura before you go into an ancient site, for example. So for me, dowsing is interacting and reconnecting with the earth that goes far, far beyond just finding things.
Yeah, absolutely. How did it all start for you? Because you're second generation, and I believe your father was a dowser.
I've been really privileged because my late father was a master dowser and geomancer. I'm also a geomancer, being able to look at the earth and decode it. to some regard. So I was brought up with dowsing, but I was also taught feng shui by Chinese geomants and taught by European master dowsers, different types of practices of dowsing as well. So it's been something that's kind of been growing all my life. So I could dowse an Eastern version. I can do Egyptian dowsing as well, which is using pendulums of particular shapes for healing. There's many, many different branches of dowsing, for example, other than just asking a dowsing rod to show you something. It can be used to literally heal and rebalance and charge up food, for example, charge up our water.
Yeah. Now, I did share a couple of links on our Spiritual Talk group, guys, because you have done a lot of work with sacred sites, Stonehenge, Avebury, amongst a few, to name a few. Can you talk a little bit about what you've discovered with Stonehenge? Because it's really fascinating, some of the things that you've discovered.
Well, the first major thing that I discovered in 2015, you might appreciate this, Paul, coming from the medium point of view. It was when the landscape literally called out to me. I decided to turn dowsing on its head. And instead of most dowsers will ask the dowsing rod to show them something, show me a ley, show me an earth current. I decided to ask the ancestors and the land, you show me what you want, not me. So I took the ego out of the equation and bingo, suddenly I discovered the elongated skulls of Stonehenge. So that was a major discovery for me. And then when I started looking at Stonehenge, I realized that, ever since about the 1950s, with Professor Richard Atkinson looking into and doing the archaeology of Stonehenge, he was just using a model from the 17th and 18th century. If you go back earlier than that, the different antiquarians said there was a different version of Stonehenge. And that's what I've got a terrible plain cold. So forgive me, audience, if I cough. So that's what I was looking into, the original Stonehenge of our ancient ancestors.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the elongated skulls, is that, what does that, who is that? What is that? Can you tell us a little bit more about the elongated skulls?
Yes, well, I believe in my heart that one of the ancient Neolithic queens of Stonehenge called out to me. And I eventually tracked her down, please excuse me, to Cambridge University. And her skull is lengthened that way. And so she's not a conehead like Pracus. I do apologise.
Do you want to take a break? Well, we can talk about it. That'll be fine. You've just flown in from Egypt yesterday. And bless you, you didn't want to cancel on us, and we really appreciate that. So, it's always right. Last week I had this. I was live, and I was suffering really badly with hay fever, and I wanted to cough. Yeah, and I really wanted to cough, and I think it was like, wasn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, once I start, it's like a cough and fit.
Yeah, yeah.
I might have to go if it continues. I would apologise.
It's all right. Don't worry. Don't worry. Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say amid this dreadful cough is that their skulls are extended that way, but they're very, very short. So the heights of these people were only about 4'9" for women, 5'2" for males.
Wow.
And their body proportions were different to ours. So they had smaller faces, which is in my forthcoming book, The Secret History of Stonehenge. Narrow faces. Their faces were only that big as your hand. Okay. Wow. Now, yeah, and I photographed it so I can prove all of this. Then what I discovered, and I think this is a real crux of a situation, our ears, I mean, you can't see mine through my massive hair and a bit like your beautiful hair there, Jane, you can't see my ears, but you can see Paul's. Now,
It's my haircut.
Their ears weren't there. They were, because they had their long skull, visualize the long skull, their ears were further back. Is this where we got the idea of pixies and the fae from? They're small, their ear placements are set further behind. Now, I say to my audience, I don't want people to believe in me. I present the facts and I give you the archaeological and anthropological reports where I get this from. Back it up. I got this from Oxford. I studied archaeology with Lisa Brown at Oxford University as well. So I like to come with a spiritual approach, but a grounded approach as well. So I believe that the Irish myth of the Tuatha De Danann, for example, who said that they were the mythical Fey race and they descended into the mounds, that's where all the elongated skulled people went into, the long mounds. So I think this myth of the Tuatha De Danann of Ireland is actually our holy history of that which happened.
Okay. So are we to say then these were separate from evolutionary man?
No, I think they were just a different sort of type of species that had these slightly longer, smaller skulls. Because when we look to across Europe, these are the indigenous British people of Ireland, Scotland and Wales and some parts of France. When you go further across Western Europe, for instance, the beaker culture, which came to Britain in 2500 BC and built the stone circles, they had much rounder skulls and were much, much, much taller. So they were contemporary with these people. And it's well known that the beaker culture that came to Britain then kind of dominated. And the recent ADNA reports, meaning ancient DNA report, states that by 2400 BC, 99% of the indigenous DNA had been changed into the beaker population. So the people intermarried, many may have died of disease, a bit like when the Spanish went to South America, more perished in the flu than they did in being killed or in war conflict, for example. So I think our history of our landscape is far more complex than the historians and the archaeologists will tell you. I tell you what the archaeologists won't.
Yeah, I like that.
I do too.
And I've been watching your lectures and talks on YouTube, and there is many on there, and I would say to people, go and have a listen. I wanted to ask you about other civilizations predating what we know. Have you, because you do a lot of dowsing different ancient sites across the world, like we mentioned, just coming back from Egypt, hence the plain cold. And is there anything that goes back further than what we don't know? Anything you've come across?
One site in Turkey goes back 12,000 BC, Göbekli Tepe, for example. That is really ancient. But have we got the dating right here anyway? I mean, I think Stonehenge could be potentially up to 10,500 years old, for example. Then you've got the really intriguing sunken cities off the coast of Cuba, for example. What's that? You've got pyramids under the sea. Is that an ancient part of Lemuria? You've got the South Islands and Easter Island. Are they part of a lost continent called Lemuria, for example? So I think you can go way, way, way back in time. And I actually think the pyramids are much older than 2500 BC, because if you look at Stonehenge, the pyramids, the stone rows that are 11 miles long in Karnak, Brittany, well, the date is always 2500 BC, wherever you are on the planet. So I think if you kind of really look into things, we are going to find pretty soon the timeline is going to go back. Yeah.
And do you, therefore, the whole Darwinian theory of evolution of man, do you believe that's a thing, or do you think that's now pretty much been proven that's not a thing, that man evolved from apes? Do you believe there was any other intervention with it, or any come across anything that from yourself that kind of changes that?
Well, as we were going around Egypt in the Nile temples, which have depictions of what some would say gods, other people would say they look like the Anunnaki, ancient aliens, for example. I feel what the ancients left us was a pictorial language, but it's a mystical, esoteric language. And like even the 43 symbols that are allegedly from the ancient civilization of Lemuria, which were written about by James Churchward, for example, in 1969, they have more than one meaning. So, for example, you could look at, one particular god as being a god or from another race, from another planet. I'm very open-minded, and I think that our history has been fogged by a rationale of the left brain.
Yeah, and I guess we're still in our inventory of knowledge as a civilization. We're discovering, and technology pushes us on that discovery. It's whether we're open-minded enough to keep that going. I mean, I've read the book, The Syrian Mystery by Robert Temple. I believe Robert is a professor now, if he's listening.
Yes, I know Robert.
Yeah, and very interesting, The Syrian Mystery as well.
Yes, his latest book is The New View of Heaven, which is about plasma.
Okay.
He spoke at my conference, Mysterious Universe. Once a year I hold a conference, and Robert Temple was my keynote speaker.
Oh, okay. You could be the person to talk to.
Yes.
We always invite questions as well, guys. If you've got any questions, please. I always feel a little bit selfish having this opportunity to sit here and ask our guests the questions that we have. And guys, if you've got any questions, we've got one from Serena here. Can you see that one, Jane? I'm not sure if I can get that up. Can you see that okay?
Yes, it says, have you ever found ley lines matching perfectly with Hierophanies?
Yeah.
Well, I think what ley lines do is, if you go back to the meaning of the straight line to Lemuria, that is a line that goes like this. So that means land of sacredness. And leys match many, many different things. So they can be attracted by things, they can be moved by things, they can flow through things. So it's not just one thing. Do you see what I mean? It's a bit like what I was saying with the esoteric tradition. Leys can be a multiple of things that link and connect a site to a site after site. But they can also be grid lines as well that link to the planets.
So do we have any idea of the creation of ley lines and how they came about? Was it Ice Age? Was it that kind of thing? What created the ley lines, and what are they essentially?
Okay, that's a good question. Well, one of the most famous authors and geomancers on all of this subject of Earth mysteries was called John Michell, the late John Michell. He was very much into sacred geometry. I've also studied sacred geometry. Now, what John Michell noticed when he wrote about the most famous ley line and the most documented ley line, the St. Michael ley, that goes from Carnarvon Bowl in Cornwall to Hopton on the Norfolk coast, he said that it was aligned back in the day for around 3000 BC, 2500 BC, to the rising Beltane May Day sunrise, and it aligned perfectly to the setting sun at Samhain, Halloween. Now that cannot be coincidental. So according to John Michell, they were man-made and targeted to a particular event. And they have earth currents entwining them as well. So that's a ley system. So a ley system has a ley line with two currents or three currents entwining it. A normal kind of ley that's just linking site after site may not have energy. That's called a topographical ley line. And then you've got some ley lines that have energy flowing through them, and that's called an energy line that may target a celestial event. Now, if it targets a celestial event, be that a moonrise, and feminine moonrise that only happens once every 19 years, pretty soon, then what happens is that line becomes infused with the solar or lunar power, vroom, around the world. Because if you project a straight line like a ley, it goes around the world and becomes a full circle. So they become infused with solar, lunar, or celestial energy. That's a power line.
Yeah, yeah. And how can it affect us physically if we, for instance, live on a ley line? Like, and I kind of know this question already because I did the Michael line. I used to sit in circle where we're literally on top of it.
Hamish Miller, who forwarded one of my books, he was the person that, I knew Hamish very well. I doused with him, all with the Michael line. He said, you're not supposed to be on them. Because they, as Hamish describes it, on the Mary and Michael currents, he teased people in his book. He called them lines. They're actually currents that entwine the Michael line. It will send your emotions too high or too low. You have to be very balanced to live on them. The ancient Chinese would avoid straight lines. Energy travels too fast along a straight line. That's why they have bowed roofs. So the chi flows gently. No person lived at Avebury. No person lived at Stonehenge. No person lived at the sacred places of Glastonbury, except for modern day people, like at Sedona. So they were places of pilgrimage to get healing and to connect to that which is your spirituality. So they're a spiritual pilgrimage place, not a place to be, living above. That's where it all goes a bit wrong.
Yeah. So a couple of questions coming in. One from Julie. And you say, hi, Julie. Have you doused Silbury Hill?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I found one of the most really powerful. Thank you for that, Julie. You can let me introduce something. Yes, I found them one of the most powerful lays associated to Silbury, Stonehenge and Avebury. So, Julie, imagine that Silbury Hill was originally a 7-step pyramid that was then smoothed off to make a really white, beautiful mound, just like the limestone was smoothed off to make the pyramids of Egypt white. And then you've got a straight line that goes to Stonehenge, goes to a place called Castley Camp, Mardinhenge, and on to Avebury. In the 19th century, it was the Reverend Edward Duke that noticed that all of these places had a kind of circle going around, and he mapped them out. And he said they were the orbits of the planets. But we know the orbits of the planets are ecliptic, not circular. So it was symbolic. Now, Mardinhenge, Mar means Mars, Den, Mardinhenge. Den means ancient settlement, farmstead, the settlement of Mars. And what I did, I used the exact method that the ancients did, which was using the mean distance in the heavens, translate that to miles and find out where the outer planets were of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And I found them on that ley line. So it's remarkable that the ancients, what they were doing is they were bringing the planets to Earth and projecting that. But Julie, here is the crux of the matter. And this is the beauty. Silbury Hill is the most feminine monument in the Avebury landscape. It's the mother. She who gives birth, and the ley there and that Silbury is above, she represents the earth mother. She is earth manifested below. And originally Silbury Hill had a moat all around it, so the reflection of the beautiful white mound would have been seen in the waters that surrounded her. Silbury Hill was one of the glories of the ancient world.
Yeah. Awesome. We've got loads of questions coming in now.
Okay, so let me see here. So Carol here, she asked, doesn't the movement of the tectonic plates change the outlay of ley lines?
Yes, I mean, you know, when you have these events like you had in Turkey, it can imagine they're being jarred like that, and they can kind of go like this. It was the first time I experienced that was I was on a tour in Italy at the very sacred Church of Saint Michael in the Alps. It was a very UFO hotspot as well, and there'd been recently an earthquake, and they were displaced. Now, sometimes they can go back, and sometimes they may move. Quite often, it's a bit like a river; it will eventually go back to its course, but they can change. But there is a method that the ancient astrologers devised. It's called geodetic astrology, which they said can predict earthquakes, where you use 0 degrees Aries. I changed it from Greenwich to Stonehenge, and that makes the zodiac on the ground. So there's many different ways that the ancients were looking at the influences of earthquakes.
That's very interesting.
Sharon asked another one. Can you see that one, Jane? I think that's good. Sharon,
no.
I've got it.
You got it, yeah.
I've read that Hopton in Norfolk has had minor earth tremors, which is due to having it on the St Michael ley line. Is that a thing?
Well, that's Sharon. Sharon, to answer that, we need to go back to 1275. What happened in 1275? Well, you have the St. Michael ley line. And what happened was there was an earthquake, and it toppled all of the churches. And that's why on Glastonbury Tor, you only have the tower left. So what Hamish said, and my late father, we did all the research into the time, was that maybe leys have a mystical side, but they also may be related to fault lines. And John Michel entered the equation. He inspired Hamish and myself and all of us oldies. And because you had all of these churches toppling, and then Alfred Watkins, who was the father that coined the phrase ley in the 1930s, he's the only person to date that has excavated a ley. And what did he find? A fault line. So we think from Hamish Miller to myself to John Michel that some leys, not all of them, are indeed associated to fault lines. So there's a kind of, not all the way along necessarily, but in part it could move away from the ley, but parts of leys associated to fault lines. The ancients placed every single stone circle in the British Isles only 1.5 miles away from a fault line. And do you know why? It's an amazing thing that you can experience. So this is what I suggest that you listeners do. When the sun and the moon crosses the horizon line at dawn and sunset, or a moonrise and a moon sunset, imagine that by the fault line you've got all the standing stones in a stone circle, a bit like the seashore. The sea rather moves in and out, doesn't it, like a wave? Well, you have what's called shear force, occasional pull, because the planet, the light, and it goes in and out, and it covers the stone in piezoelectrical activity, so it becomes highly charged at that point. That's why the ancients were placing them within 1.5 miles of a fault line. It's magical to touch, and even if you put your head, I got a real zing once. I decided to put my head, everybody else was doing their hands. But you can really feel this activity. And that's what the ancients were harnessing, the natural power of the sun and the moon into the ley, into the earth energies, into the megalithic power.
Wow.
It is wow. And you know what I think, Paul and Jane, the beauty and the poetry that the ancients made for us to still experience today is a legacy that is thousands of years old.
Yeah. Yeah. And also it's going to sound a bit of a strange question. We always have this feeling that we are more advanced than the ancients, but actually I'm starting to think it's the other way around. That we're just starting to understand the legacy they left us and the knowledge.
One thing that is very apparent, Paul, that I feel that, you know, you're pretty on the money, is when you look to the first phase of a monument. Imagine somewhere like Stonehenge has taken 1,000 years to build.
Yeah.
Avebury took 1,000 years to build. And you look at the first phase, the biggest, most sophisticated lunar alignments, solar alignments, the largest stones. You look to the later dates, not so aligned, not so accurate. So it's almost if technology went backwards.
Yeah.
It didn't go forwards. And then when you get to the dark ages of King Arthur fame, wow, you know, it's barbaric. Whereas you know, in the prehistoric time, especially the Neolithic, it was more peaceful community as well. So I think we can learn an awful lot from our ancient ancestors.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, the big question that I've been wanting to ask, what was the purpose of Stonehenge and Avebury and other ringed circles and their meaning to humanity?
Each stone circle is coincidentally its own entity to some regard. So I'll address Stonehenge and Avebury. The ancients, whether you go to ancient Egypt or Stonehenge, this is what the audience, I really try to touch their hearts on this, okay? Because we will improve ancient sites if we do. Where before you go into a stone circle, before you go into a temple, there is a point in that ancient site that will clear your aura, okay?
Okay.
Now, the thing here is, I was taught this by the Italians, yeah, because they were telling me to douse this church for this point, and what you find, and they were right. It was a clearing zone. So imagine now, before you go into an ancient site, you've spent that. Earth energy doesn't take an hour healing, folks. It's about 15 seconds, and you clear your aura of all of your baggage, so that you are spiritually clear. Then you go into an ancient site, you're more receptive to the spirituality of the site. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's very important. So the first thing is clear yourself. When it comes to an ancient site like Avebury, it is very gentle. It is very healing. It has a lot of healing areas, and so does Stonehenge. Was this recorded? Yes, it was. In the 12th century, the historian Geoffrey of Monmouth, who wrote The History of the Kings of Britain, very famous book, still in print today. Will I be in print hundreds of years afterwards like Geoffrey of Monmouth? I doubt it. Even the top authors of Britain, I doubt that. But he wrote in the 12th century, every single stone of Stonehenge is healing. Now, in my secret history of Stonehenge, not going to give too much away, but there are certain stones in the healing trilithon section that were highly charged, that were healing. And the Ministry of Works, which is today called English Heritage, which has changed its name to Historic England, defaced these stones because they became known in the 1930s for healing. And when you are in charge of the narrative by making guidebooks, you can write that which you want. So what I've done, I've looked at all of I also, for your listeners, I inherited all of the unpublished manuscripts and surveys of other master dowsers beside my late father.
Wow.
So I have, you know, a legacy going back to 1899, and I went through in lockdown. Didn't we all need something to do? And I went through all of them, and I found a whole new earth energy system and some secrets of Stonehenge that I feel could really change us. So to answer your question, Stonehenge was healing. It's also alchemic and transformative. Yeah, it will transform a state into another state, especially the Greater Trilithon. And in 2010, it was stopped you to touch the stones because people were getting downloads, people were getting transformation. So it became illegal, even on private access, to touch the stones. So I believe they are transformative and they can link heaven to earth.
That is amazing. So just put a comment up. Do you believe they are stargates in Stonehenge?
I did an amazing show with the UFO hunters called Vortex. It was a great thing because I was one of the first people to point out that Stonehenge is surrounded by 16 military bases. Okay.
Wow.
And yeah, you look into that. It's got the equivalent of Area 51, where no civilian can go. And do you know what is in that Area 51? The most interesting burials, weird burials. Okay. I like weird. I look for weird. So we got. I mean, you then, Jay. Your beauty. So we've got Area 51. Got Stonehenge surrounded by 16 military bases, and so I'm with the UFO hunters testing out dowsing with blindfold. We're having a really good time. But as they point out, because I will give credit where credit is due, they pointed out that wherever they went in the world, when you have a portal, you can call it a stargate, access to different dimensions, whatever one wants to see it as, you will have the military. And you will have the vortex, and you will have an ancient site. They go hand in glove.
They know this information. They're pretty much privy to a lot of it, aren't they?
Exactly.
We don't want to get banned on Facebook, so we'll kind of avoid that a little bit. Moving on swiftly. But it's true. It's kind of, okay.
Can we actually talk about what we were talking about before we came on live? When Maria was talking about the chakra-like system of the ley lines?
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. You get some leys, which, for example, on Vancouver Island, is probably one of the most interesting things about Vancouver Island in terms of leys. You get a line that goes from like north to south, and it will kind of have these pulse points, if you will, where earth energy comes up like this. Because a ley line isn't by itself. You have lots of different things. So you have underground water interacting with it. You'll have emergence point of energy coming out the ground, like cobras, and lots of different things besides. So imagine that it's got these pulse points. Then you can have like the base chakra, and you can move up a ley like that. They can be long, like on Vancouver Island, or they could be on a long barrow, and they can be quite short. For example, and at Glastonbury Abbey, we were talking about Glastonbury Abbey. My late father, oh my God, it must have been in the early 80s, discovered that on the axis line, that means east to west in a Christian church, it pulses 7 times, and that will activate your chakra system as you're walking west to east to the holiest of holies, the high altar in Glastonbury, so they can be clearing and activating the chakra system.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome, isn't it? The other thing I wanted to ask, I'm sorry guys, actually we should just ask, people are actually asking questions, and we're going off on tangents and asking our own questions. Joe, the Croaking Shaman Turner, has put here, Michael and Mary line, or Mary, correlates to the extent of the ice at the last ice age. Is this coincidence?
Well, I would say that all of the earth currents are Mary and Michael currents. When Hamish was writing his book, he coined them lines because he thought they were lines, and he was writing that book on the road, and he realized then that they were currents that meander like great rivers. But there are numerous different other types of currents as well, and they do seem to have their genesis going way back in time, whether that's the ice age. What geomancers think that happens in an ice age when you get a lot of package down, as it were. And Stonehenge didn't have the ice around it, nor did Avebury, actually. If you look to the computer models, then it will kind of compact it down. Whereas here, in part, the Michael line, ley line, not the Merriam-Michael currents, was in full flow. But the ones going north to south, that's a different matter.
Awesome. Okay, I'm just quickly reading through the comments.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a stone circle in Ley Marsh in Suffolk. Is this true, Julie's book?
I don't really know Suffolk that well, to be honest, but the best way to find out as a research author is look to antiquarian reports of your area. You can do that online by using the database of the National Monument Record Office. It's based not far from me, actually, physically, but you can do that online. So the first thing I say to people to find out whether it's true or not, look for an antiquarian that saw it and recorded it. And this can be from the 15th century onwards, right the way up to the 20th century.
Awesome. So coming back to sacred sites like Stonehenge, but not just Stonehenge, a lot of cathedrals and churches that our ancestors have built on. How did they know? We see a lot of churches in our community, and a lot of those churches are built on different sites and sacred sites going way back. How did they know where to build them? Did they have this understanding?
Well, yes, I think the ancients were more connected with the land. That's the first thing. And if you really do walk the difference between a ley, walk the difference between an earth current, the healing spiral patterns, and the jarring patterns, you do get a sense of what the place is about. It's walking the 9 walks in some forms of geomancy. That's what it's called, walking the 9 walks. So I think, yes, I think they were sensitive, but I'm going to add something in that not as controversial, so I'm not going to get you kicked off, but it's a little bit different nonetheless. Where I was speaking about the elongated skulled people, we did some tests against standing stones because I wanted to prove megaliths emit energy. Go to my website, theaveburyexperience.co.uk, megalithic power, and I proved it, that where I got those dowsing responses, you get energy coming out. And this was all recorded using controls as well. And then the guy that did it, very famous chap called Rodney Hale, he noticed it was around, I think, about sort of 18 hertz. And David Webb afterwards got 18 hertz, to be fair. And we hear at 20. So I think our ancient ancestors could hear energy in the ground because they have longer skulls, bigger brain capacities. Your mind perception tends to be mostly physical when you go to an ancient site. I think a lot of it was audio, hearing as well. The ear placements were off. All of this may have added to a different perception of place.
Yeah. And so in terms, I was told once here in my garden that I've got a spiral ear. What does that mean?
There are many different dowsers have many different terminology, especially in modern day dowsing. Traditionally in geomancy, so I don't know what he means by that because there's so many add-ons, but in traditional master dowser terms, that means you have very, very deep yin water born within the earth that releases 7 coils or 14 coils in one of its expressions. And that is very healing. I've measured that with equipment. That releases a Hertzian frequency, a 7 hertz, which puts your brain in 7 hertz, alpha meditative mode. So they're very healing areas in effect.
That is very interesting because the lady told me that I had a spiral. She worked a little bit with Hamish. That's how comes I've got the book. And she did a lot of work with him up in Scotland. And she was on the phone and she tuned into it. I had this in my garden. Now, interestingly, when I pulled up to look at this place to live, when we were looking for somewhere to live, both myself and my son, we both came together. We felt the healing energy around here.
There you go. It is. Yeah, Hamish didn't coin it geospiral. He knew what it was. He used the old terminology of a blind spring. That's what some, old school dowsers call it. But it is actually, technically speaking, called a geospiral energy pattern, which is one of the most harmonic expressions of Gaia. So when we look at these patterns and these lays, think of it as, energy coming out of Gaia and a way to communicate with Gaia. Now, if it's deep water, and when I douse areas that have deep water, and you may choose to do this, Paul, or you may not, but what does water have? It has memory, doesn't it? It contains memory. So that area within your house is like an Akashic record of your place. It's an Akashic record of the area, everything that has happened there, as well as being a healing area. And what does your body consist mostly of? Water. Yeah. So what we can do above these deep waters is something that I started a long time ago, was cleansing your body water above deep bodies of deep water, and it's kind of being refreshed, if you will, from the inside out. It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sharon's just put, everyone's going to move to Paul's for healing then. Water around here, and officially we are on the Norfolk Broads, and there is a couple of nature reserves as well. Ted Ellis, very known, well-known naturist, and I'm trying to, David Bellamy. With him as well, very close to him, and he was actually offered David. Is it David Attenborough that does all the nature programs? He was offered the job before David, but he turned it down. He was a lot older than David, but yeah, so he was well known. This was a really interesting area. And it's it really is. A lot of things seem to grow. So I'm not sure if I've got a ley line nearby. The lady seemed to think I did, but I'm not sure which one it is.
There's some plants really don't like to be grown on lays. That was discovered in the 1970s, whereas other plants can thrive on them, like the Caledonian pine, which Alfred Watkins pointed out. So in some regards, it can stunt growth. In other regards, it can expand growth.
Well, I'm not a gardener, but I've noticed that everything seems to be super growth around here.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's suggesting that's kind of got good geomancy about it, but not all places are like that.
Yeah. We should get back to the questions, but that's really interesting. But Laurie's asked a great question as well.
She has. So she says, hello, lovely Maria. Great to see you. Do landscape zodiacs correspond to any energy flows or currents?
I think what the ancient geomancers were doing in landscape zodiacs, and there's many throughout the British Isles, and I had the great pleasure of meeting Mary Kane that studied with Catherine Maltwood, and you can integrate them. So the Glastonbury zodiac is massive, and it's going to be having some integration. So you can integrate it, and when you integrate, and you can kind of ground some earth energies it's a bit like acupuncture, by placing, like a needle on a meridian line, it will ground it. So I think what was happening in places like Glastonbury, Kingston upon Thames, and many other places is they were using kind of earth acupuncture to ground particular earth currents, so they wouldn't kind of veer off course. And I think Catherine Maltwood even sensed that herself. If you read her book, she kind of hints about this.
So, Maria, can I ask you a question? Going all the way back to your humble beginnings of when you first started using divining rods, I've got my own set. Now, is there a correct way to hold them? Because they kind of spring around and go off on their own. How do we use them? And what's the correct way to hold them? Do we put thumbs on top, or?
No. I mean, I use copper rods. and they look quite flimsy, your rods, and they look like they've got sleeves on. So you hold them at a level that I just use one rod, but if you want to use two rods, you hold them at your body's width for one, and you stabilize them. But long before you do that, what I would suggest that you do for accurate dowsing is spend some moment. You mentioned that healing place in your garden. I'd call it rod dedication. I would take your rods, place them on that healing earth energy pattern. And if it feels right for you, I mean, I'm in servitude of Gaia. Yeah, that's my kind of mission. But I would ask that energy to infuse those rods for accurate dowsing or to help you, whatever it is you want to do with your dowsing. And then once they've been, and leave them for a while, earth energy, like I said, isn't an hour therapy. Leave them for, a couple of minutes, and that will suffice. And then you might even feel, when you pick them up, a slight tingling sensation in those sleeves. Because metal is a conductor. Okay, it will conduct all forms of earth energy. Then when you have them, as you touch them like this, close your eyes and feel the earth beneath you. You connect to the earth beneath you. So you are now an extension of connecting to the earth with your rods. Do you see what I mean? Long before you ask for yes and no responses, you're reconnecting to the earth through your dowsing. And again, what many people feel when Gaia's accepted that, they feel a slight pull forward. It's a little like a little pull. Then hold your rods as relaxed as you can, and ask, maybe a first question. Please, can I connect with you, Gaia? A lot of people think, oh, they should be able to douse. They should be able to go out. Maybe make an offering to the ancestors, the spirit of place, the guardian of your place. If you've got that sacred energy there, you may even have a guardian of place there, and make it into something spiritual, rather than just go yes, no. Yes, no. That's what most people go, oh, look, you've given me a yes. I feel the more that we go into it on a deeper level. So after I've done some dowsing, for example, I'm spoiled here. I've got Stonehenge down the road. I've got Avebury down the road. I am thoroughly spoiled, Maria. But even if I wasn't, I always suggest to my students, after a day's dowsing, just put them back on the earth.
Yeah, that's right.
Let them reconnect, and it's almost like they self-cleanse that way. And especially if you've got a healing energy pattern, that will be quite clearing for you as well. So you're quite lucky, and I call it rod dedication. Your first thing should be rod dedication in Maria's world of dowsing.
I inspire a lot of people to get up and try dowsing.
Well, that's it. They just get two rods. Show me a yes, bang. Show me a no, bang. And where's the grace? Where's the love of Gaia? Where's the reconnecting? Where's the spirituality?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. And a lot of that is in your intention, I guess. It's setting that intention for that.
Yes. And then maybe even, like I said, how I discovered the elongated Queen of Stonehenge. And like I say, I photographed her at Cambridge University. This isn't fantasy. Ask the land what it wants to show you. Because the problem with dowsing today, in my humble experience, and this was the journey that taught me to take my ego out of it, instead of saying, show me this, show me that, show me where this ley line is. What does the landscape want to show you? What does the ancestors want to show you? And when you turn it all around on its head, magic is afoot.
You are giving me full body goosebumps as you talk about that, just head to toe, full body goosebumps.
I felt that.
Yes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
There's a priory not far from here as well. There's a lot of spiritual connection. There's an old Roman site not far from here either. Case to St Edmund. But yeah, there's quite a few things around it, and great places to go and douse. You know?
Absolutely. I mean, I was at Bury St Edmunds probably about 3 months ago. And it is wonderful, and the thing is well with dowsing on these amazing ancient sites, they speak to you. So again, it's when we douse, we're connecting with the ancient aura of the place, and we are now the communication from the past to today.
Yeah.
And
So,
I think if we take responsibility for that, we can bring out the holy history of this land.
yeah, agreed. And I want to be really nosy. Was you dowsing in? That's my hometown, Bury St Edmunds.
Yes, I was. You have to excuse my brain where I've been. I'm jet lagged. But yes, we went to the main kind of ruinous.
Yeah, the Abbey. The Abbey Garden.
Abbey, and you've got the big archway, which the main St. Michael current goes through, and I was doing the points of the vortex. If you go there, there's a little part on a high elevated ground with a twisted tree. Whenever you see a twisted tree in geomancy, that means a vortex. So if you doused around that vortex, I think you'd have an experience.
That's why I used to play hooky in the Abbey Gardens as a kid.
Really? Really?
Now you know why, Mother. I was naturally being drawn to the Abbey.
Excuses.
It is. Maria Wheatley, what is next for you?
Well, I've doused now more than most dousers in numerous countries and cultures. So for me, the different cultures, when I've studied Lemuria and Atlantis and other places, they had their own templates, as it were. So, you know, Stonehenge has lays, that's the only thing that links them, but they were utilizing different types of earth energy in different cultures. So my next book after The Secret History of Stonehenge is going to be about all of the wondrous earth energy patterns worldwide. And like I mentioned earlier, there's 49 recorded in the geodetic system of earth energies. And I want to show people the hidden mysteries of Hathor's temple in Egypt through the stone rows of Karnak. So I'm going to have lots more adventures, lots more fun, meeting incredible people on my journey, like you and Jane, because that's a part of it as well. We learn from one another. No one author has all the answers. Together, we're a team to unravel the ancient mysteries and the secrets of the past.
And that I want to say thank you for that, to have, to share all your knowledge, and you're a real encyclopedia of these sites and what, not just yourself, but also your father before you. Is there also going to be a third generation of dowsers?
My daughter Raven, she studied psychology at university and passed with a master's degree, and she's doing her own thing, but she's going to be joining me on one of my tours this year to continue the legacy. She feels a draw now. I mean, I turned professional in my 20s. When I was a teenager, I was having far too much fun to, do dowsing. I've been doing it professionally since my 20s. So yes, the answer to that is, I think, yes, my daughter's highly perceptive, Raven. She will inherit all of the legacy that I've got. She's become aware of what she could potentially have. And like I said, you hear authors like me saying, oh, I discovered this and that. But like we chatted in the green room, if you will, there's so much more to discover. And that's what keeps me going. And we all can solve a mystery. I got into the paranormal and all of this to solve a mystery. And do you know what? It just brings another one round the corner. And isn't that what we love?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So a little birdie has told me that you have a movie coming.
Yes.
Yes. The secret history of Stonehenge is also going to be in movie form as well. So that's going to be announced in the near future. It's going to have some animation that takes, quite a while to make. But yeah, it's really making great progress. So we'll be having online launches and online parties and things like that. So yes. And what I just like to say as well, it's wonderful that people like yourselves come together to share this ancient wisdom, because at the end of the day, we all want to improve our lives and the life rather of Gaia, and it's a wonderful thing. So I'm in gratitude of your work and what you guys do.
Oh, thank you. I feel really bad now because I got to use the Graham Norton chair. This is where I drop people out at this hour mark. I'm so sorry, Maria, but it's been an absolute pleasure. We can't thank you enough. And yeah, especially as
we should have her back on too, because she's a fountain of knowledge. She has so much interesting information, and all of the comments that have popped up that we haven't even talked about.
Yeah,
that we should definitely have her back.
And all the people watching on Catch Up as well. Lots of people can watch our show on Catch Up as well. It's brilliant. It'll be there. It'll be online. It's all free. So,
and sorry for my coughing outburst. I apologise for that. That must have been most off-putting. Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. It's all good.
The last 2 years, I've had some interesting situations in going lives. Lives are about. I did actually. Can I repeat? I'm not sure if I'm going to get in trouble for repeating this. I did watch you do a very big lecture to a lot of people on YouTube, and your phone rang, and it was your daughter, and she wanted to know for tea. I chuckled to myself because that would be fun.
And it was the Omen theme tune as well. I got in so much trouble, you have no idea.
That's brilliant. Classic. Okay. Well, again, thanks again, Maria. We will look out for your film. We'll certainly keep an eye on what's going on and check out some of your books as well. There's a lot in publish as well. Check out some of Maria's work. We highly recommend it.
Yes.
But for now, we'll say goodbye. I always feel bad about this bit.
I'm glad you have to do that, not me.
Here we go with the lever. I'm so sorry, Maria. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.